few words today about our relations with India. Maybe talk a little bit as well about what we've been doing with the diaspora as well, because I know there are a lot of Indian Americans in the audience, and you might be interested to hear about some of our initiatives. First of all, with respect to India, I think there's probably no country in the world with which we have traveled farther or faster than India in the last 15 years. Many of you remember that India exploded a nuclear weapon in 1998. We enacted quite a number of sanctions in response to that. But things began to really change quite quickly after that. First, after 9/11, when our countries began to work very closely together on counterterrorism, but then with a very important civil nuclear deal that took one of our greatest irritants in our bilateral relations and turned it into an area of progress. And now, under President Obama, we've established a strategic dialogue to try to give some strategic direction to all of the important things that we're doing now with India. And I think that's had some really positive impacts in a lot of different areas. We've dramatically expanded our clean energy cooperation. Many companies here in California have benefited from that. We have a huge solar business now in not only in India, but a lot of that is from California-based businesses. We're also doing a lot in defense, which is a new area of cooperation. We've had about $9 billion in defense sales over the last several years, and we expect that to increase quite dramatically. One of the biggest has been these large transport aircraft called C-17s, and those are all made here in Long Beach, California. And again, a $4 billion sale. We expect perhaps more of those to come in the future as well. So I think California is benefiting in very concrete ways from the increased friendship and the increased engagement that we have with India. I also just want to pick up on what Congressman Honda said about the Asia Pacific. All of you know about the rebalance to the Asia Pacific that President Obama has really championed. And we consider that India and the rest of the countries of South Asia are a very important part of that rebalance. India is going to be one of the most important partnerships for us in the 21st century. The President has said it's going to be a defining partnership. And that's because it's a country with which we have shared interests and shared values, particularly those of democracy and accountability and open government and particularly market economy, but also a country with which we are increasingly working so closely on all of the problems of the day around the world, be they climate change or non-proliferation or Iran or particularly Afghanistan. We are in the process now, as you know, of a very important transition in Afghanistan where American troops are leaving. And because they are leaving, a lot of their spending will be going as well. And so we don't want there to be a big hit on the Afghan economy. So India has been playing a crucial role in trying to drive investment into Afghanistan, trying to create more of a private sector and trade-based economy in Afghanistan. And again, I think it's been a very important partner for the United States and the rest of the international community. So I think those are some good examples of India's leadership on the international stage. And then finally, and most importantly, perhaps for all of you, is the economic outlook going forward. India is projected to be the third largest economy in the world, probably in the next 15 years or so, depending on how growth rates go. The economy is now growing at about 5%, but people expect that to increase. And with that will come a very large market for American products. There are already about 300 million Indians who are in the middle class, who already are a very important market. But that number is expected to double over the next 20 years. So that number will be roughly the size of the European Union, what the European Union is today. And by the way, will be roughly that same number 20 years from now, with very low growth rates in the European Union. So it shows that there's huge upside to our relations with India on the economic side. And as Congressman Honda said, we now have about $100 billion in trade. We also have a lot of Indian investment coming into this country to help create jobs. So we're doing a lot to try to promote that in both directions. One of our interesting new initiatives is to promote what we call subnational engagement, that is state-to-state and city-to-city types of engagement. And I know California has been, again, a very important considering the trip out to India, which we strongly encourage and of course will help to facilitate. Let me just say a very quick word about the diaspora. When we're in Washington, we always talk so much about Silicon Valley and the tremendously important role that the Indian Americans have played here in starting roughly 1 out of every 7 companies here in Silicon Valley and really driving innovation. And we in the South and Central Asian Affairs Bureau have really put an emphasis on trying to work more closely with the Indian diaspora because we feel that they are leaders in so many parts of the United States and are leaders in helping to build these people-to-people contacts that really undergird the very close relations that we have between the United States and India. So we started a couple of new initiatives that I thought some of you might be interested in. One is something called India Giving Network, and we have some pamphlets up here later that you all can get copies of. And this grew out of a lot of meetings that I've had with the Indian diaspora all over the United States, and people saying to us, you guys are doing wonderful work with India, but we want to get involved, we want to help. How can we do that? And so what they suggested was to create a website and a centralized place where they could get information about non-governmental organizations that are doing good work in India that we can certify are doing good work. And so we've done just that. So this IndiaGivingNetwork.org brings together in one place a lot of the American NGOs who are doing fantastic work all over India. And it includes a lot of links to other websites of NGOs and others that are doing this kind of thing. So I encourage you to look at that. The second one is what we call Passport to India. And Passport to India grows out of the idea that we are very proud of the fact that there are 100,000 Indian students here in the United States. We want to encourage as many more of those to come to the United States. But we also want to have more American students have the opportunity to go to India. And that's a very small number. It's only about 3,500 or so. So Passport to India is an entirely private sector funded effort that we have started at the State Department in my bureau to provide internship opportunities for young Americans to go either study for study internships or to work at U.S. businesses. So I may have to lobby Jonathan later on from Microsoft just a little bit of help since he was so talking about a lot of the philanthropy. But seriously, we think it's a tremendous opportunity, and we're busily now raising money for that from the private sector all over the United States, and I think it's going to be a really terrific new effort. So please pick up a brochure on that. And let me just conclude by saying I've talked almost all about India, but if there are questions about Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, or Central Asia, I, of course, would be glad to talk about that during the question and answer period. So again, thank you so much for inviting me today, and it's just terrific to be here in this lovely part of the world.